reporting for TTN-HD Production Live, here with comedian, writer, STEVE Bluestein. Tell me a bit about your brand new book, It's Hard to Type with a Gun in My Mouth.
It's so hard to type with a gun in my mouth. It's a collection of short stories and essays that I wrote about my 30 years on the road, and all the backstage stories and all the insane things that happened to me in my life. And it became like, I tell everyone, it became like a 350-page 12-step inventory. I mean, I just sat down and whatever came out, I put down on the page. And I've been really surprised at the response. It's getting rave reviews, and sales are great. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Was it therapeutic for you writing the book?
It was. I tell my friends it was like a 350-page 12-step inventory. I just sat down in front of the computer and I started writing stories, and one story would lead to another story, and then subconsciously it would go into areas that I wasn't even thinking about, and I would start telling stories about childhood things that bothered me, and it was like really cathartic in getting it all out on paper. And what I found is that by my getting it out, it's really helped a lot of other people, because I didn't have a great childhood. It was rough. My parents were divorced. They fought a lot, and they fought through me, and that affected me a lot. So by getting all those stories out, I was able to help a lot of people who said, hey, I had the same thing, and you know, thanks for sharing it.
And it's kind of a common thread that a lot of comedians do come from troubled backgrounds. Do you think that's true? And did you have a lot of comedian friends of yours that were really influenced by the book?
I actually was sitting down at a table with about 12 comedians, and I had heard this theory about and I asked every single one of them, and every single one of them had had a trauma in their life, a divorce, a death, a hospitalization, something that affected them in some way. So yeah, it's definitely true. And no, none of my comedian friends have been affected by my book.
Have they read it?
No, they haven't read it. That would take time and effort.
And did you get any material from the book while you're writing it? Did you discover anything about yourself that maybe you didn't know before?
Well, I'll tell you what I discovered. You know, I'm being a stand-up. I'm used to standing on stage, saying a word, instantly hearing the response, and then moving on. And I always thought that was because I was in control of the words. I had the timing, I had the tempo, and I knew which words to punch. When I type the words out, put the words on paper, and I give them to somebody else, they're in control of it, and they determine where they're going to laugh. And I don't know it until 3 or 4 months later, when they'll call me and say, hey, I was reading that story, and I actually had a friend of mine who's from Boston, Elaine Good. She's a chef, and she was reading this. She said, I was reading your book, and I was laughing so hard. And I said, well, what were you reading the book about? And she told me this section that I said, you were laughing at that? That's what you were laughing at? You know, it's like to me that wasn't a funny, I was just telling something that had happened, and she found that hilarious. So that's really a realization that I didn't know was going to happen, was that, you know, in the written word, people find their own reality. That has nothing to do with me. Yeah, you know, I'm a playwright too, and I just wrote a play called "It's So Hard to Type." No, it's Rest in Pieces, and it was optioned for Broadway. And I'm going to New York in May to do a reading with Olympia Dukakis, and this whole written word thing is so new to me, because I'm used to, you know, being in control of the words, and now I'm giving my words to somebody else to say, and they interpret it differently. So it's a mind-opening experience, which I love.
Would you say, going from a performance art to writing a book, would you say it's as satisfying, or in a different way? It's
more satisfying, and I'll tell you why. In the performance art, I have a lot of anxiety, especially 5 minutes before I go on. And then I have to get on a plane and go to, you know, Yahoo Indiana or wherever I'm going, you know, and then I have to live in some ridiculous hotel and or comedy condo, and writing a book, I just go upstairs. You know, I write the book and it send. It goes to the publisher. I'm done for the day.
Do you think you'll be writing more books in the future?
I've already started the second book. It's so hard to type with a gun in my mouth. T-O-O. And the initial writing, I had over 700 pages, and I thought, well, that's a little much for anybody to expect anybody to read. So I split it up. I have 315 pages in this book, and then the new book I've just started, and it's about 25 pages so far.
And is it autobiographical as well?
Yeah, it's all autobiographical, observational. In the original, as I was writing, there was a lot of political stuff because I was so angry at George Bush. But since he's no longer an issue, I've taken all that stuff out, and you know, I culled most of that material. So now it's basically things that have happened to me, stories that happened to me, things that happen around the house here, and backstage stories.
What's your writing process like? Do you write in the morning, the evening, and how do you get yourself to do it?
I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, every morning, and I write for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'm done then I can go to Costco.
And get 300 rolls of toilet paper.
300 rolls of toilet paper.
Great. And where can we find out more information on the book?
The book's available on Amazon.com, and if you want a hardcover, or it's actually a soft cover, it's on Lulu.com, Lulu.com.
And is there a website where we can follow you as well?
I'm on Facebook. I am on Twitter, and I had a website which was with Mac, but Mac no longer supports that, so it's going to be down in a couple of months. But Facebook is the book. It's so hard to type with a gun in my mouth has its own page on Facebook. So, and you can read all the comments of everyone who's bought the book and read the book, and that's been the most rewarding. I mean, I at 3 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep, I go up to the office and I just read them, you know. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, and thank you so much for the interview.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for TTN-HD Production Live.